Hello, and welcome to another edition of Long Beach Treasures. I'm your host, Harvey Keller. Today we're visiting one of the oldest institutions here in the city of Long Beach, the Farmers and Merchants Bank, with its headquarters located here at 3rd and Pine. And joining me is Doug Pricer, and he's going to give us a brief history of the bank. And Doug, thanks for joining me.
Well, it's great to be here, Harvey. Thank you for having us. This whole thing got started actually in 1895 when a lady named Carrie Ziegler and her mother were coming up Pine Avenue from the post office in their horse and carriage, disappointed that they had not heard from Carrie's fiance, C.J. Walker. And as they approached 3rd Street, which was the nexus of the city in 1895, it was a dirt street, their horse and carriage, C.J. Walker was walking across the street on his way to the Ziegler home. He had come to marry his bride. And they were married that spring in 1895. 12 years later, they opened up a bank right down the street here, 227 Pine, right next to an alley between Broadway and 3rd Street. They stayed there until 1911, and there was a storefront operation, and they'd opened it with 4 other investors. And they stayed there till 1911 and moved right across the street to this building in 1911. This building was owned by a family, I think their name was McKenna. And the McKenna family had that building since 1906. In 1911, CJ and Carrie moved their bank up to this corner, stayed in business and grew and prospered. They kept expanding and moving their offices as they expanding their offices as the need arose. Around 1921, he purchased a lot across the street on the northeast corner of Pine for about $160,000.
Which is in the building here.
Which is where the building is now. And finally built this building, broke ground in 1922, and it was finished in 1923. A couple of years later, the tower was built. They hired Crillette and Beelman, who were very prominent architects of the day. They were a very big architectural firm out of Los Angeles.
They did the old Security Bank building,
They
too.
did indeed. They did the Pacific Coast Club. They did the Cooper Arms, did the Security Bank building, and this building. This was the first one. This was the first one they did in Long Beach. So they were the chief practitioners of Italian Renaissance revival on that day, that particular type of architecture. And this building, they use that technique, of course. It's constructed of porcelain glazed cement, so it's actually not marble. Steel reinforced concrete, but it's porcelain glazed cement, 8 fluted columns on each side, and then the convergence down to the angled entrance, the Doric columns topped with a frieze, and then the dentils on the 3rd floor. So they use that motif to build it. Used brass-plated steel for the front doors and both the side doors, and they're actually trimmed in Verona red marble. The smaller doors were always like that. Originally, the front doors were not, but there was an accident in the 40s where an automobile ran into the front door. So when they had to rebuild it, they didn't know how to do it to make it look like it originally was, so they trimmed it in those great big blocks of Verona red marble.
The first drive-in bank?
First drive-in bank was not here. The first crash-in bank, perhaps, but not the first drive-in bank. And that's how they did it. So it was a big thing in its day. It was the most beautiful building of its day when it was opened. 8,000 people came on the Saturday to come to the grand opening. All 45 F&M employees hosted the public. They had an employee band. They provided music. They had food. All of the vendors who had helped to build this building, the contractor, the architects, the people that built the teller's cages, all those folks ran advertisements in the local paper and the Press Telegram to herald the grand opening of the bank.
8,000 people, that must have been all of Long Beach.
Well, pretty close. Long Beach was a pretty small town in 1907. It was all very intimate, you know. It was all, everybody kind of knew everybody. All the business men all knew everybody, of course. They were all friends and associates. And everybody knew Colonel Drake down at the Hotel of Virginia. All those people were friends and knew each other. So it was, or at least associates and knew each other. When they opened the tower in 1925, that was the first skyscraper in Long Beach. So all 10 floors of it. And of course the 2-story tall sign, which has become an iconic landmark.
Is that an original sign?
I don't think so in the first year or so, but shortly thereafter. I'm not exactly positive when they put that up. But anyone that grew up in Long Beach like I did when I was a little kid running around in the 50s, you know, in the 60s. I can tell you of some experience with that sign. There was a Merry Christmas sign across the top, or you just saw it at night, and it was quite a thing. So coming into here, you'll come down here on a business day and talk to some people. You'll meet fourth and fifth generation depositors, people who will tell you their great and great grandparents banked at this bank. It's still very much a family atmosphere. Very unique.
Could we walk across the street and check out the bank?
I think that'd be a good idea. Let's go.
Okay. And here we are in the venerable old bank.
That's right. Here we are in the lovely atrium lobby of Farmers and Merchants Bank of Long Beach. And as you can see, a great deal of detail was put into making this bank the way it was. And I think probably the person most qualified to tell you about it is Dan Walker. And Dan's right here.
Dan, welcome.
How are you today?
I'm fine.
Nice to see you. Welcome to Farmers Merchants
You
Bank.
know, I've been wanting to film this bank for a long time, so today I'm really happy.
Well, we welcome you to come and film it today, and welcome all your viewers to come down and actually look at the building on their own when they get a chance. I think that it's a fabulous building.
Absolutely fantastic.
I agree. The detail that was put here was very much the dedication of C.J. Walker and Gus Walker and my great-grandmother, Carrie Ziegler Walker.
1933, the earthquake. How did the skylight fare?
In 1933, the earthquake did shake this building as much as any downtown, but the building stood very strong in relation to its construction. What we did lose is the windows on both the south side and on the east side. The large pane glasses did break out as the earth shook. We did have some damage done to the friezes on the top of the building just below the skylight there, but beyond that, the restoration was just cosmetic.
What are the walls made out? They look like a certain kind of brick.
They're designed to look like brick in relationship to the strength of the bank, and that's a constant philosophy that you'll hear as the bank is considered strong, conservative, and friendly. But these are plaster walls that are supported here with light brick underneath them, and then the brick design that you see there is actually drawn in, and then the color-coded for decoration.
Speaking of safe, am I not correct in that you are one of the safest banks in the nation?
We're one of the safest banks in California, and we're the fourth strongest bank in the United States, is the correct way to say it.
Oh, that's quite impressive anyhow.
Thank you.
I love these cages. It almost looks like something out of Bonnie and Clyde. Have they ever filmed here?
Filming is not done too often because they always want to come during banking hours. So the filming side of the cages is not something that we've had the opportunity to do. But these cages are made of brass material with glass in between. They have a very specific design which is easy for the customers to communicate to our tellers, and then also provides safety to the tellers as well.
Are the chandeliers original?
All the chandeliers that you see in the bank are original off of the ceiling. The ones that are here in the lobby area are made of brass chandeliers, as we had them all cleaned this year, as well as the chains and the emblems on the ceiling themselves. They weigh about 750 pounds each.
Wow.
And very, very powerful and very decorative units. If the camera could maybe get a close-up on those particular chandeliers, they can show the detail both on the chandelier themselves and then on the emblems above it. As you see the ram's heads on the just above the chandelier themselves. Now the center chandeliers that are in the middle of the lobby, you asked about the earthquake. The furthest chandelier from your camera did actually fall out of the ceiling in 1933, so that was one of the accidents that we had, and that chandelier was repaired and then rehung. When we took the chandeliers down during the renovation, again to clean them up and redecorate them as you see them today, we found that these chandeliers are almost 1,000 pounds apiece. It took 4 to 5 men to leverage these chandeliers in position as they rehung them back up on their original location.
I'm assuming this is gold leaf?
Gold leaf, it is true. Everything that you see in gold is gold leaf. And It not only is right here in front of us and also on the second floor, but then on the skylight too. There's an amazing amount of gold leaf and detail on the skylight itself. And when we were renovating the skylight area, it took almost 14 months of two groups of individuals on a daily basis to put that gold leaf back up and the detail that's on that particular ceiling.
Is the mountain lion your protector here?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that the mountain lion is a strong protector for us. The story goes back, Gus Walker, who was born in 1899, of course in the western days when you could carry a gun and hunting was allowed. He did capture this lion as a cougar and shot it and then had it mounted because he was just so proud of the lion itself as the emblem of California and the emblem of what he had done. That was back in 1928 on the rim of the Great Grand Canyon.
Wow. Where else can we go? I want to see it all.
Well, let's take a walk.
Okay.
We have a great deal of opportunity here. If you come down here to the north side of the lobby, we see two areas that have been improved a great deal. The original design of these areas were more for a social environment for our customers, as they would, back in the 1920s through the 1970s and 80s, individuals used to come into the bank. That was where they had their social time. This was an area built for that social type of activity, or as well as an individual maybe preparing their deposits or preparing to do transactions with a bank. What we've gone ahead and done here is to change these areas into the new accounts area. We're focusing on a little more privacy for our customers and focusing on some detailed time with those customers as they come in and open up their new accounts, so they comprehend all the products that we provide for our customers, as well as the services that we can have.
You know, I have to compliment you. At least when you call F&M Bank, you get to talk to someone. It's not push one or push two, and I really appreciate that.
That's something that I don't see changing anytime in the future at all. We have two operators that run the main office here, as well as we have operators at each of our offices, so that the phones can be answered when a customer calls. The lines can be directed specifically who you're searching for, and you're going to get your answer on that day, if not that moment.
Gus was your grandfather?
Gus was my grandfather.
And his desk is down here, is that true?
Well, let's walk over here and talk a little bit about this particular area. This area of the main lobby is known as the loan or lending area. If you can imagine, back in 1907, we didn't have MasterCard or Visa. And so many times when an individual needed to borrow some funds, $200, $500, or $5,000, this is the area where they would come and queue up to see a loan officer to get that loan, buy that furniture, get that car, do those different types of transactions that we many times take for granted today. It is still used in the loan area, and we have officers that actually sit in all of these locations. Your camera is viewing the roll-top desks that appear here in it, and these are original desks clear back to 1923. We have refurbished these desks, of course, on more than one occasion, but we felt that maintaining the heritage of the bank and the heritage of what our job is to do for the customer are very important, and that's why we maintained the desk. You brought up the subject of Gus Walker. Did he sit down here? Actually, let's go back to C.J. Walker, the founder of the bank, and truly the man who built this building. C.J. is the founder of the bank, knew that it was important to be with his customers at all times. And so he designed this particular desk here for himself, so that he could be immediately accessible in the lobby at all times for customers' concerns or the needs of a customer. Still today, our president, Kenneth Walker, sits at this particular desk, the one that C.J. Walker, the founder, sat at when he was here.
Can you think of any other bank where the president sits out in the lobby where anybody can just walk up and talk to him?
I am not familiar with another bank that follows this tradition.
That's great. Really unusual.
Very unusual, indeed.
What are the medallions along the top up there?
I'm told that these medallions are friezes that came from Roman influence. And they have no specific meaning to us. I imagine that it was my great-grandmother's influence into the building, as she appreciated the country of Italy very much, and she brought back different pictures of environments that she experienced in her life.
Where else?
Well, we can go downstairs. We're always very proud of our big door, safety deposit door downstairs. So why don't we take a walk down the stairs and take a look at that?
Let's go. Now, this is the vault area.
This is the safety deposit area of the main office. What you have here, let me take you back to 1907, because I think the discussion side of this particular room and the event that you're about to witness here is important. Imagine in 1907, as you're building this building, that you have to install a vault, as you see the vault door standing in front of you. This particular vault is 22 tons, 44,000 pounds. You didn't have big cranes in those days of 1907. And you can't walk a vault door of this size down the stairs after you build the building. So imagine you come in, you build your basement, you pour your floors, you create your vault, and you install the vault door at a very early stage. So the vault door itself was installed at the early part of the construction, and as you see, it's still standing here today. And we use this door each day. The design of this door comes from the Mosler Safe Hamilton, Ohio. And you might say, well, 44,000 pounds, that seems like a lot to lift or move on a day-to-day fashion. And as you can see, the floor goes right up to the vault door. So how do you get this door open and closed? And we've actually prepared it for us to actually do that today. The first thing that you do is you need to lower the floor that's in the checkered pattern. So we release the floor, and this floor is actually not hydraulic. It is actually just carried on sandbags for the counterweights in order that so that the floor can move up and down. So you lower the floor like this. You have the door already open, and this is the manner in which you go ahead and open this door. Now we're going to let you experience this yourself so that you can imagine how heavy this door is. Please don't pull too hard. It's hard to stop. It's not hard to make go. Go ahead and grab that handle and bring that handle forward. And just as you get it going, that's as fast as you need to go, because the door's going to come.
It's going to go by itself.
Very true. So as you can see, the door itself just goes ahead and swings itself, because it's truly just balanced to perfection all the way around.
Wow, that's something.
When I was a younger boy, and I will get to the point of closing it. As a younger boy, one gentleman said, "Would you push me the door?" And as I pushed him the door, I put my foot up against the wall and gave the door a big shove. And it drug him all the way around, and he barely got it stopped before the door slammed. Now that we've gone this far, we push this floor, and it comes back up and locks in place. Put down the ramp for us to go for. Turn on our light, and you're ready for business.
Wow.
So this is the safety deposit area. These boxes are 1923 vintage and work every day for the major portion of our clients. We have more than 4,000 boxes in this particular location. And then, of course, the safes that you see are other business of the banks that we have on a regular occasion. But you can imagine when the customers came in, a safety deposit box was a very important issue for their day-to-day activities. They would keep their papers in there. There wasn't an electronic world out there, so you had to keep the papers that were drawn for grant deeds or your will or your testament, something of that nature. And so this is the areas where you'd keep it, as well as you might keep your family jewels in there, or you might keep some history of the family and so forth. So the design of the safety deposit area as you remove a box is to go ahead and place it in this location. And as you can see, we actually could have 6 customers at a time in this location. And primarily this was used for you're just coming to get into your box, get something out rather quickly, and put the box back away. All of the boxes are dual control, so they're completely guarded by the bank at all times. You can't get into this box without an employee of the bank, as well as you can't lock it up, so the keys are returned appropriately to the patron who has the box itself. Let's walk outside the vault here for a moment, and I'll show you another piece of interesting portions of banking. This area over here, many people refer to these as confessionals, as you might see.
Look like one.
But they are not. They are specifically designed to be called coupon rooms. And as you can see, I'm sorry the light's not on, but as you can see in this particular room, individuals back in the days when they would buy a bond, in order to collect the interest, they had to cut the coupon off the bond. I know you're a little young to know that, but, but necessarily, that was the activity that was designed for these particular rooms. If you noticed in the room, there's also a plexiglass top to it, and that was a very specific design because if you dropped something that fell underneath the table, you would see it before you left on the day. So that was the focus and specific design for that particular event. But these are original coupon rooms as designed here and maintained. The red light that is up there is if one of the doors are closed, then the red light turns on. And if anybody has a question, they would push the button in the middle of the room, which would ring a bell out here for the attendant to come and help them for any specific need that they have.
Well, you get a really good view of the
gold leaf.
Yes.
This room down here is a very excellent room to see because this gold leaf down here and these rooms down here have been the most protected of all of the bank area. They've been unexposed to natural light, and so the wear and tear on these particular rooms was very light. When we were remodeling the bank, we thought, maybe we won't even go down here because it was in such excellent condition. But after seeing the job that was on the main floor, we were driven to go ahead and move down here and refinish this particular part of the building.
And I assume the marble floors are original?
These are not marble floors. These are called terrazzo floors.
Oh.
And a terrazzo floor is a floor that is actually just concrete with a design poured into it. So as you would smooth the floor out, then you would have this particular design. Although the white stripe here is the same Tennessee marble that is on the main floor that you walked on and saw.
Now where?
One of the other charming rooms of the basement, I think, is the boardroom. This particular room was created, let's go ahead and walk inside. This particular room was created for 2 separate reasons, and then it's been modified beyond that. As you can see, this particular room is one of great protection, again, completely original in relationship to 1923, except for I'll go over some of the changes. Originally, this room was designed for multiple purposes. One, conferences that you would have with your clients. Another one was a community room in relationship that we would lend this room out to other environments, nonprofits and profitable areas that needed a room in order to have their board meetings or annual meetings. At the beginning of the bank, our shareholder base was not quite as large as it is today, and commonly we would have shareholder meetings down here on an annualized basis. And it's just been in the last couple of years that our shareholder base has grown beyond the capacity of this particular room.
What is the opening on the table?
In year 2000, you might remember the Y2K episode of The World.
Yes.
In year 2000, we would have the job to upgrade this building to make it fully redundant. That means we have to be able to run on our own generator, and we have to have the capability of a digital environment. This particular square was designed so that we can go ahead and plug in computers, plug in different events. We have electricity on the table as well as telephone on the table. And what we have arranged now is if you have a presentation by a computer, is you would plug it into the centerpiece, and then the screen up here is where you'd go ahead and make your presentation. So in the year 2000, while we were upgrading the building, we went ahead and upgraded this entire room as well, so that you have the opportunity to make presentations. As well as the podium itself, you can make presentations from the podium. It also has its own loudspeaker in case you had a large capacity crowd in this particular room. Another piece that we did in year 2000 is we actually brought air conditioning in this room. It was never air conditioned up to the year 2000. We don't have it turned on today, and you can feel it might be a touch warm. But
Is that a tapestry on the wall?
It is a tapestry. Thank you for noticing that. That was brought back from Italy by my great-grandmother, Carrie Ziegler Walker. And she hung that up here in this particular location. We have valued it. It has very little value. So at this point, it's a great sentimental value to the family. And we keep it hung up in remembrance of Carrie Ziegler Walker.
We only have about 3 minutes left if there's anything else that you want to point out real quickly.
Let's do that. In 1923, the main office of the Farmers and Merchants Bank was open, and as the patrons entered the bank, they were very curious as to what the bank was made of. So my great-grandfather, C.J., produced a book which we're taking a picture of here, and it shows not only different pictures of the bank, but it also shows explanation of the areas of the bank and how we were supposed to be using it. It shows the front door, the lobby area, the safety deposit vault that you saw downstairs, and of course the final picture of that is the 10-story portion of the whole bank, which we were operating at that particular time.
Do you still have copies of these?
This is the only copy that I know of that we still have. We may have one more copy here or there, but that's why we tried to put this particular copy behind glass in perpetuity.
All right, let's go up and check out your grandfather's office.
Let's do that.
Now, this was your grandfather's office?
Yes, welcome to Gus Walker's office. This was his particular office, and this was his original roll-top desk where his nameplate of CJ and Gus still stand. My brother Henry occupies this office at this particular time, but Gus Walker was the greatest influence to the office, as the pictures that are on the wall.
And you
the
said
various
this
things.
ledger was the first day of business here in the bank?
This particular ledger, as I've opened it to today, dated November 25th, 1907, was the first day of business for Farmers and Merchants Bank, and you can see where the 5 gentlemen contributed $5,000 in capital for $25,000 total, and then we had various funds of how it's to be allocated. We made deposits at the Bank of Oceanside, City National Bank, First National Bank of Long Beach, and then Hanover National Bank in New York for our cross-country transactions, if you wish to say. We also made a loan to 2 individuals totaling $6,000 for the day, and we had customers who brought in deposits of over $5,769.18.
Well, when you said the presidents have their desk down on the main floor, I assume Gus did also?
Gus had a desk down at the main floor, but
he also had an office.
But in the 1960s, he decided to go ahead and move upstairs to this office, and my father, Ken Walker, who was an executive vice president at the time, went ahead and moved into the desk of C.J. Walker.
I want to thank you for taking me on a tour. As I said, I've been looking forward to this for a long, long time, and I finally got my wish. So, Dan, thank you for the tour, and your bank is beautiful.
Thank you very much. And again, anybody who's watching your show, you're quite welcome to come down and visit our bank. It's opened every day, and we'd be pleased to have you come and recognize what the bank's made of.
And if you don't come down and check it out, you're going to be missing a real treasure of Long Beach.
We agree with you there. Thank you.
And that's our show for this time. Join us again next time as we take another walk through history and uncover more Long Beach treasures. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Long Beach Treasures. I'm your host, Harvey Keller. Today we're going to do something we've never done before. We're going to rebroadcast one of our shows we did a couple of years ago. It's on the cemetery, and it profiles the Historic Society's annual cemetery tour. William Wilmore will be back, and 9 other interesting stories will be told. And to give us more information, here's Julie Bartolotto, who is the Executive Director of the Historical Society.
Right now we're at Long Beach Municipal Cemetery.
Is this owned by the city?
It's a city-owned property run by the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Marine. And now I'd like to introduce to all of you Long Beach's first urban planner, William Wilmore.
Well, howdy, folks. Nice to see you. Some of you may not recognize me, but I'm William Irwin Wilmore. Now, some people around these parts used to call me the George Washington of Long Beach. For you see, I was the founder of what was to become the city of Long Beach. I was born in London in 1844. Me mums died when I was just a wee tot, and Pops and I came to America when I was 11. Years after his death, I became a wandering school teacher. Some people said I should have kept right on wandering, but by 1870 I ended up in San Pedro, you know, right across the bay here. And one day as I was walking down Anaheim Road on my way to Anaheim Colony, why, I stopped to rest at what is now Long Beach Boulevard. And as I sat there and I looked out over the valley, my dream of a city took shape. And although I traveled through Oregon and Washington for the next few years, I never lost sight of my dream. And in 1876, when I was 33 years old, I came back to Southern California, and I went to work for the California Immigrant Union. Now, let me digress here, folks, just for a minute here. In 1869, an event occurred that was to forever change the course of history in the West. The first transcontinental railroad, the Southern Pacific, was completed. Well, now, large landowners like Jotham Bixby, who owned Rancho Los Cerritos, they were quick to see the opportunity for land development, and they formed the California Immigrant Union. It was to encourage settlers to move and come to Southern California and buy their land. Well, sir, I became the general manager of the union. And by 1881, I had saved a few dollars, and I had a little land experience in land management. And I approached Jotham Bixby about subdividing some of his Rancho Los Cerritos property. Well, after a lot of thought and careful consideration, why, he finally agreed. And on March 1st, 1882, a new joint stock company was formed. It was called the American Colony. It was formed to purchase 4,000 acres of Rancho Los Cerritos land. It provided rich, fertile farmland, gently rolling down to the ocean, an abundance of artesian water, and it also had a $25,000 note at 6% interest, which was due in December. So I had to get busy and start selling some land. Well, you know, every colony needed a town site where people could shop and socialize, and I set aside 350 acres for my town site. Today, you would recognize those boundaries as being from the Long Beach Freeway to Alamedas, from Ocean to 10th Street. Everything north of 10th Street would have been farmlands. And I also set aside some land there at the corner of what is Ocean and Pacific for a park for many, many years. You would have called it Lincoln Park. And to no one's surprise, I named my town site Wilmore City. Well, sir, I started selling plots of land from 10 to 40 acres at anywhere from $50 to $100 an acre. I also sold town lots in Wilmore City fronting on San Pedro Bay, ranging from $50 to $100 for each lot. The land didn't move as fast as I had hoped, and so I decided to have an auction. It was set for October 31st. Halloween, don't you know? Well, you know, there was so much interest in my American colony, and maybe it was because the train ride and the lunch were free, why we had to add extra cars to the Get Out and Push Railroad to accommodate all the people who wanted to make that 20-mile, 30-minute trip to Wilmore Station in Wilmington. Well, after the folks enjoyed a free lunch, why, many of them decided they were just going to have a day at the beach. Well, I started my auction anyhow, promptly at 1 o'clock. 35 pieces of land ranging from $25 to $105 were sold before I stopped the auction. Again, I was disappointed in the amount the land was bringing in. And I knew as soon as the promised water was added and other amenities, why the land would be much more valuable. Well, needless to say, I missed my December 1882 payment, and I also missed my June 1883 payment, and by June 1884, I knew I was not going to be able to repay my debt to Mr. Bixby, so I sold my interest in the property for $1 to a Los Angeles real estate firm by the name of Pomeroy and Mills. Well, wouldn't you know, the first thing they did was to drop the name Wilmore City. Oh, they had a lot of suggestions for some other names: Crescent City, Cerritos Beach, Long Beach. Well, they couldn't decide on a name, so they put all the suggestions in a hat, and when they drew out the winner, well, it was Long Beach. Dejected and a broken man, I traveled to Arizona. And while I was there, I suffered a severe heat stroke, which was to affect my health for the rest of my life. And when I came back to California, I was declared a pauper, and I became an inmate at the Los Angeles County Poor Farm. By 1899, I knew my health was in serious shape, and all I could think about was going back to the city that I so dearly loved, because that's where I wanted to die. I walked out of the Poor Farm, which was located over here near Downey, and I made my way back to Long Beach. When I got there, I slipped into the back of the First Methodist Church, just to get warm. I had been living in a tent, and all I had were the clothes on my back and 5 cents in my pocket. This is where I met Ida Crow. God bless that woman. She offered to take care of me and give me a place to stay. I started to weep when I found out she already had 7 children to care for. I told her if I would have known that, I would have never added to her burdens. But they took me in and they cared for me. Why, they even set up a fruit stand on Pine Avenue with friends of mine donating the fruit for me to sell. But my health was so bad that even that venture failed. Ida and her family daily turned back the attendants who came by ambulance from the Poor Farm to take me back. Ida said she promised that I could die in Long Beach and she wasn't going to go back on her promise. She didn't. My end came January 16th, 1901, at the age of 57, here in the city I so dearly loved. Mine was a poor man's grave, not even a marker to mark the site. It wasn't until 1913 that the Signal Hill Civic League purchased the marble slab identifying my gravesite. Except for a condominium and a neighborhood association, you'll not find my name on any public building, park, playground, school, or even a street sign. This is my only monument, dedicated to me not by the citizens of Long Beach, but by the citizens of Signal Hill, the farmers of my American colony. Oh, I do wish I could have lasted 2 years longer or started 2 years later, because I would have been a successful person. You see, in 1885, the Second Continental Railroad was completed, the Santa Fe. And in 1886, competition between the Southern Pacific and the Santa Fe reduced train fares from $52.50 down to $4. The land rush to California was on. Oh well, if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. Well, folks, I'm sorry my story didn't have a happier ending, but it was nice to see ya. I guess, you know, after all, dreams still do come true, because I can still look down over the hill and I can see that city down there that I founded, oh, those many years ago. You don't call it Wilmore City anymore. Today it's called Long Beach. Well, folks, thanks for stopping by. Nice to see ya. Okay, Julie, where are we going to go now?
Next, we're going right next door to Sunnyside Foundation Cemetery.
Do you have somebody else you want us to meet?
Yes, we have 2 other people to meet today.
All right, let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, now, Julie, where are we?
We're at Sunnyside Foundation Cemetery, right next door to the old municipal cemetery.
Is this owned by the city?
No, it's not. It's a private foundation cemetery. And by 1905, the municipal cemetery was becoming full. And so a bunch of citizens got together and established this private cemetery that boasted the best in perpetual care.
And it's still a privately owned cemetery?
Yes, it is.
Okay, now you said you had somebody else you wanted to introduce me to. Who is it?
Yes. I'd like us to talk to now Yoshikazu and Kamiko Tushiyama.
All right, that's a mouthful.
Ohio gozaimasu. Hello. We call ourselves
The Terminal
Islanders because we spent the best part of our lives on Terminal Island. Then, in December 7th, 1941, everything started falling apart. My name is Yoshikazu Tuchiyama, and I was born in 1899 in Wakayama, Japan. As a teenager, I followed my brother to California and went to work at a boarding house in downtown LA for single Japanese men. I didn't want to live that life of a single Japanese man, so after a few years, I sent for a wife.
My name is Kimiko Uyeki, and I was born in 1900, Hiroshima, Japan. My family were farmers, and we farmed rice fields. And because my father was a gambler, we were in financial difficulties. So my parents hired a baishakunin, a go-between, to find a husband for me in America. At the age of 18, I came to America as a picture bride.
Now I want to tell you, Kimiko was lucky. Many of those picture brides got married to old geezers. I was her agent.
Handsome.
Handsome.
We were living in a boarding house in downtown LA where we also worked, and that's where Japanese immigrants lived. At that time, we had 4 children, and unfortunately, our first daughter died.
Well, you know, we just weren't making it there in that boarding house, and we decided to try something new. So we saved our money and bought into a minor partnership with the Suzuki brothers on their boat, the Nancy Hanks. And we moved our family to Terminal Island. You know, there in the 20s, fishing, I had my first fishing accident. I lost an eye to a fish hook. Well, I had a glass eye from then on, and I wore sunglasses most of the time because, yeah, I'm a little vain. But you know, the kids, they'd sneak in at night to take a peek at my glass eye and that glass of water next to my bed. It was a big adventure for them.
You know, living in Terminal Island was a wonderful life. We lived in a duplex, and at that time we had 6 children. And as they got older, I worked for Van Camp's Cannery. Whenever the siren of Van Camp would whistle, it could have been in the middle of the night, I would get dressed in my white uniform to meet the fishing boats. And for all those years that I was a cannery worker, my skin smelled like fish.
You know, we were poor, but it was a good life on Terminal Island. You know, we knew everybody, and we even knew a lot of their parents and grandparents from Wakayama.
It was fun. It was fun. But when the men came home from fishing, that was difficult because,
Well, you know, I'd sleep for 24 hours, then I'd go over to my friends to play cards.
then I'd have to send our daughter Aiko over to fetch him because I wouldn't go and get him for dinner.
You know, she hated gambling so much. Well, you know, we even sent our kids to Japanese school, so they were getting their culture there. They got to roam and go to that beautiful Brighton Beach all on their own. Well, all of that, of course, changed with Pearl Harbor. We were so scared, we were so confused. You know, we loved America, and we loved our emperor. Then, on February 4th, at 4 a.m., those FBI, they came in their trench coats, they burst into my house, they dragged me away, they took me to Terminal Island, then they sent me to Lordsburg and to Bismarck, North Dakota, treated me like a spy. You know, I didn't get to say goodbye to my family, and I didn't get back to them until 1944 in the internment camp. And in the meantime, Kimiko, she had to cope without me.
Executive Order 9066, May of 1942, changed our lives. We Japanese Americans had to be interned during the war, and we were ordered that we were only allowed to take one suitcase per person. So I took my special kimonos, and my children took their clothing. First, we went to the processing center at the Santa Anita racetracks, where we stayed for 3 months. Then we went on to Poston, Arizona, till the war was over.
Now, okay, they let us out of prison. We've lost everything. We've got to rebuild our lives. And what do we wanted to do? We wanted to come back to Fish Harbor on Terminal Island. But it was gone. The Navy had taken over the whole place. Brighton Beach was gone.
It was horrible. But fortunately, that our sons were in the military. Remember, Hideo was
in the 442nd, the most decorated battalion in all of U.S. history.
And Teruo?
He was a paratrooper. And they survived, even though they were in the thick of the fighting. And because of them, we qualified for
the Cabrillo Housing Project. We were the lucky ones.
And I was lucky. I got to go back to work with the Suzuki brothers. Of course, it was a rented boat by then. And we all went to work and saved our money.
And I went back to Van Camp's Cannery.
And we bought our first house over there on the west side.
Remember Esther and Pacific Coast Highway?
Yeah, we were so
proud. It was lovely.
And we built a new Japanese-American community over there on the west side, because it was about the only place we could buy houses in Long Beach.
Had my favorite market.
Yeah, barber shop, garage, the Harbor Community Center, the credit union. And then, you know, life was getting better. We had our friends around us. Then I had my second fishing accident. My body got caught in a wrench. I was helicoptered to the Marine Hospital in San Francisco. I got to come home, but I never recovered, and I died in 1954.
I continued to work at Van Camp's after the war, and Van Camp's hired all nationalities. That was wonderful, my co-workers. Then at the age of 65, I retired, and I was able to enjoy all my grandchildren. And there was one thing that I instilled in my children and my grandchildren was the Japanese heritage, the values of behaving with no shame to family, to being trustworthy, and also to be gracious and generous.
And always tell the truth.
Always. And our first granddaughter, Joanne Ishimine, was the first Asian American woman to be a newscaster on Channel 7 here in Los Angeles.
Now, I got to tell you quickly something that happened that our children did after we died. They went to the government and started a movement called Redress and Reparations. And in 1988, Congress and the President apologized to all Japanese Americans who'd been interned without ever going to trial. And each of the living people was given $20,000 as part of the apology. Now, of course, we were already gone. We'd already joined our ancestors. But even from the grave, we were proud. Arigato.
Gozaimasu.
Well, Julie, that ought to give our viewers a good sample of what to expect on the cemetery tour. So tell them everything they need to know.
Everything you need to know to come on the Historical Society Cemetery Tour. The tour day is Saturday. This year we're doing a Civil War section where we have someone representing the Union and someone representing the Confederacy and talking about different Civil War veterans buried here, and you'll get to hear Civil War buffs debate the issues. We also have a section called Babyland, which is a section of very small headstones that are markers for burials of children who died in 1918 and 1919 due to the flu epidemic. We also have a section called Halloween Around the World. And in this section, we're highlighting several different cultures and how they celebrate similar holidays to Halloween. We're focusing on Sicily, Sweden, China, and Mexico. To go along with Dia de los Muertos, we're also having sugar skull decorating for children.
Now, you said parking in the cemetery here. What if there's not enough parking?
There's some parking south of Willow in the side streets that you can also park there.
Because the cemetery is located, what, between California and Orange?
Yes,
Willow.
on Willow Avenue.
And anything else that they need to know?
It's a great day. You learn about Long Beach history, you learn about historical events throughout the world, and fun day to learn all kinds of different things and support your local historical society.
Which indeed we need the support of everybody because as many people might know, we recently moved, and moving is expensive, and so come out and join us and support the Historical Society. And let's go back and say hello to our other two guests so that everybody can recognize them. I think they're probably ready for their close-up now. All right, give us your names.
Hi, I'm Karen Harper, and I'm an oral historian.
My name is Linda Nishida, and I'm a docent.
And you're going to do a different presentation on Halloween?
Yes, absolutely. For this cemetery tour, we're going to tell you about the Moroka family.
Ah, interesting.
Oh, fabulous story.
Anything else that you would like to add about the cemetery tour?
You've got to come out. It's a fabulous day. And thanks to Karen, I'm learning more and more about my heritage. And the segment that you just heard is special to me because Kimiko Tachiyama was my babysitter.
Really? Oh, so it's a family history there.
Yes.
Well, okay, we're going to see all of you out here at Sunnyside and Memorial cemeteries. All right, the cemetery tour this year is going to be on Saturday, October 27th. It's going to run from 9 until 1. Prices are $18 for non-members, $15 for members, $5 for students up to 18, and children under 12 are free. Parking is available in the cemetery on a first-come, first-served basis, but there's also off-street parking, and there will be plenty available. And also, this year, for the first time, the Long Beach firefighters are going to be giving us free hot dogs. At the cemetery tour, there will be 10 grave sites which will be profiled. One, of course, being William Wilmore, plus 9 other interesting individuals who have a history to tell. The cemetery is located at the corner of Orange and Willow, so be sure and come and join us on Saturday, October 27th from 9 to 1 for the annual Historical Society's cemetery tour. You'll have a great time, and it's a lot of fun. See you there. Well, okay, we're going to see all of you out here at Sunnyside and Memorial cemeteries on October 27th. And you're going to see some exciting presentations, and you're going to learn more about some of the history of Long Beach. And that's our show. Thanks for watching. Come back again next month as we take another walk through history and uncover more Long Beach treasures. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Long Beach Treasures. I'm your host, Harvey Keller. Today we're going to be revisiting the Bembridge House. We visited it once in the year 2000, and many changes have been made, and so we're back to see what changes they've made. And joining me is Ira Schutz, and she's going to talk about the house and take us on a tour. Iris, welcome.
Thank you very much, Harvey. Well, we are very happy with the work that has been done on the house. We've had it repainted recently. We have a new roof. We have foundation has been stabilized, and now we have heat in the house. So we're very pleased with all of the changes that have taken place.
I noticed the emblem up on the peak was not painted. Is that any reason?
That is going to be a really expensive thing to have done, and we haven't found the right person to do it. I mean, it's going to be many thousands of dollars. Everything else was done, but that one thing, it requires a new cast, a new plaster cast for that, and we haven't found the person to do it yet.
This looks so clean and neat in
Yes,
comparison to, you know, it's the same color, but it just stands out so much more now.
Yes, we're so proud of how the house looks. Many of the neighbors coming by here too comment, and I'm always happy to talk to anyone who walks by, and I think that we have more respect for the house from the people in the neighborhood now that it's looking so much nicer.
And the front door has been refinished?
Yes, that was a gift from one of our members, and that was done, one of the first things that was done, and that makes the house look so much nicer.
Let's go on up, and this was built in when?
1906. We just had our 100th anniversary last year.
And it's a Queen Anne Victorian.
Yes, it is. And some of the things you look for in that is the wraparound porch that you see here. And somewhere, up at the very top of the, can you see way up at the top at the, where we're going to have the new plaster, there's fish scale
Oh, yes. Yes.
siding up in there. That's rather unusual. And then we also have siding along the ship side siding that is along the rest of the house, as you can see.
The narrow wooden
The
boards.
narrow wooden panel, yes,
Let's go on up and see. This was originally built by Stephen and Josephine Green, I
Yes,
believe.
yes, that's true, it was.
He was a banker.
Yes, he was, and he built it and only lived here for 6 years before he died. But he was, and his wife lived here for another year, and then the house was sitting on the market for about 6 more years until in 1919, the Rankins bought the house, and they had admired the house previously, had come and, as a matter of fact, not only admired it so much, they built a house in the same style back in Cambridge, Nebraska. Yes, in their hometown, before they moved out here permanently, and they built the home in the very same style because they admired this house so much.
Well, let's go on in. Everything looks so different, so new, and so clean, and
I know,
it's what a difference that
I know.
a few years make. All right, let's go see what it looks like inside.
Very good. Well, this is one of the most elegant foyers in this area. We have quite a large room here to enter. We have the coffered ceiling up above, and the staircase that you see looks like mahogany, but it's actually a soft wood, and all through are carvings that are Grecian carvings. We have several that are, you'll see in
Egg and dart.
egg and dart, yes, and then we have a rope here, and we have, most importantly, we have here
Dental molding.
and you see the dental around the ceiling as well, and that's another feature that you see in the Victorian homes.
That's a neat light on the newel post.
Well, that is actually part of the original house, and it was here from the very beginning, and it's beautiful, we think.
The leaded glass is original also?
Yes, it is. The leaded glass in the you mean over here?
Yes.
Yes, the leaded glass all through the house. There's various that are Tiffany style leaded glass, and we also have several places where you will see another feature of the Victorian style is the ionic columns that we have along in here. Again, it looks as though it's mahogany, but it's actually a soft wood. Hasn't really had very much care over the 100 years that the house has been here, and yet it still looks beautiful. We have a couple of features in the house that are not the features of the house, but of the family that eventually bought it, the Rankin family. And this clock that we see, this grandfather clock in the corner, was a wedding present for Mr. and Mrs. Rankin. Those are the parents of Mrs. Bembridge, and the house is named for her. And that was actually also back from the original time of the house, which was 1906, because that's when her parents were married. Here's a picture of the people who were responsible for building the house.
Stephen and Josephine Green?
Stephen and Josephine Green, yes. They were quite well-known people in the Long Beach area, and as you said, he was a banker, and was really well along in life when they built this house, and so he only died 6 years after they moved in.
I understand that when they owned the house, Dame Nellie Melba was here, the
Yes.
Opera star from Australia.
Yes, she was, and she stayed in the master bedroom, which we will see in a little while. It's a very large master bedroom. I think that you'll find it beautiful.
Let's go on.
All right, this is the first parlor, and we have some guests here that are enjoying some of the things that are really recently done improvement. One of the things is we have the sofa that has been in this house for some years, and two of our guests are enjoying the sofa. And that sofa, we didn't know that it was really the original sofa that Mr. and Mrs. Rankin, Dorothy Bembridge's parents, had purchased and brought to the house until we recently had it uncovered and recovered, and we found the original channel upholstering style that is on the back of the sofa. So we had it redone with a fabric that was very similar to the original fabric, and we are thrilled that we've had this recently done.
The piano also is original to the house, is it not?
Yes, it
They
is.
bought that on their honeymoon?
Yes, they did. We have a letter that was sent from England by Mr. and Mrs. Rankin, and telling the family that they had bought this piano and had it sent back right after they were married. This is a Steinway, and the other piano in here is also a Steinway. That was bought at a later time in the 1920s. We think it was restored in the 1920s. Frequently, Mrs. Rankin and Dorothy Bembridge would play together because they were both expert pianists. We have another thing that has been recently recovered, a lovely settee set, which is in the foyer, and this rocker, which was done with the money was from one of our members who recently passed on, and part of her legacy to us was to have this recovered for us to enjoy with the new covers that are much more beautiful than the original. So, well, it's actually similar to the original. It's much more beautiful than what was covered over, which was not as pretty as this is.
And I noticed you have these beautiful pocket doors.
Yes, we do, and they still work. Many of them are still working, and these have been closed off totally. These two that you're looking at right here have been totally closed off. Some of them don't work as well as others, but after 100 years, I think we're very lucky to have any of them working.
Do you have to treat the wood?
No, we don't do anything to the wood. We just wipe it off, and we don't put any oil on it or treat it at all. Once, maybe very rarely we would, but we've been told not to do anything to the wood. We've been told to leave it the way it is and not put any kind of special oil, because that would really reduce the life of the finish.
Hey, if it's lasted 100 years,
Exactly.
why knock success?
Exactly. Another thing you might be interested in is the feature. I noticed you're looking at the feature along the walls here. These walls, we think, are the original covering on the walls. They're not wallpaper. Some people think it is, but it's actually a type of paint that is different colors that are sort of patted on, sponged on, and it was very stylish back in 1906 and has come back in style after all these years, but we are quite certain that this is the original finish on the walls.
And this
is the
second parlor?
The second parlor also could be called the library. We have some books in here. We have beautiful tile with Roman goddesses, I guess you would call them, or ladies, lovely ladies on the fireplace. And again, we have the egg and dart on the wood molding, and we have the ionic columns. The picture on the fireplace over here is a picture of Mrs. Bembridge's family when they were back in Cambridge, Nebraska, her father and mother. At this picture, she was quite a little girl. She was probably about 7 or 8. She was 10 when they moved here, and so it was before they moved here.
She taught at Jordan High School, did she not?
Yes, she did. She taught at several high schools in Long Beach, and Jordan was one of them. She taught music, of course, and she was an excellent pianist.
And this is the dining room?
The dining room has a couple of interesting features. One of the most interesting, which we like to talk to people about, you seldom see them, is this a chandelier. It's actually called a gasolier, because when this house was built, we always think, well, we've had electricity for a long time. Well, we have, but Originally, in 1906, electricity wasn't always turned on. It wasn't turned on all day long. So sometimes if the electricity wasn't turned on and you wanted to have some light, you would have to have the gas lights. The gas has been disconnected since then, but we still have the fixtures, and we now just use, of course, the electrical.
The ceiling in this room is one of my absolute favorites.
Yes, another coffered ceiling, which is beautiful. I like the one in the entryway. We also have another interesting feature that was an innovation that was created by Mrs. Bembridge's mother. When she came here, the glass case for the china case was closed in the back with wood, and her mother said, "Oh, we need more light in this room," so she opened it up and put a window in behind, so now you can bring light into the room, and it shows off her silver china and glassware and various things that she had in her collection. And of course, we still, on the other side, each side of the case, we have
Original leaded glass
the
windows.
beautiful leaded glass windows. Yes, they're lovely.
Now, the breakfast room here, this
Well, the
was
breakfast
an
room,
add-on?
yes, the breakfast room was added on in 1926. As I said, Mrs. Bembridge's parents bought the house in 1919 and decided to add on to it. We originally had the porch that went all the way around the house, and they cut off part of the porch, and this window that you see, the bay window in the dinette area, probably was part of this dining room. And the whole thing was moved out and made into a dinette area. As you notice, the light fixture is different because by the time we came to 1924, we no longer needed gas lights, so they had electric only. And this dinette area is next to a kitchen that was also added on in 1926. And the kitchen was quite small for a house this size.
It is.
Yes, well, that's because Mrs. Bembridge's mother was not much of a cook. She didn't like to cook. Mrs. Bembridge didn't also like to cook. And they were musicians, and they didn't need a large kitchen.
I think they once said that we're musicians, not cooks, so we don't need a big kitchen.
That's what she said to her second husband when she married, and she was by this time in her mid-40s, and she said, "I will give you Beethoven and Brahms, but you have to do all the cooking." And we have a 1926 kitchen here with marble, how much they used it, I don't know, but a marble pastry roller place. And we have one thing very interesting here, I think you might like to see. We have a garbage disposal, 1926 garbage disposal. This little thing opens up. There's a garbage can outside.
And it doesn't require power.
That doesn't require
Or a
power.
switch.
Yes. Yes.
All right, let's keep going.
All right.
This is really small for this size of a house.
Yes, it is. It's a tiny room. For
Beautiful glass doors.
yes, it's amazing to me what was done by the people who did the restoration in 1926. Originally, the wall ended here, so they put these doors in. They put, I don't know where they got the, this was probably like the house was maybe 20 years old, and they put paneling in. It matches exactly the next room, as though it was made at the same time. But it was 20 years later that they
Must
did
have been a master craftsman.
It had to have been, yes.
Now we're going into what was the original kitchen?
Yes, if you go in and notice in the original kitchen, up on the wall, you see the two vents for the stove that was originally in the kitchen. This kitchen has now been turned into an office for us. We use it, we have a computer in here, we have a table in the center that we use for meetings, and some of the original furniture is in here. Actually, this was it was originally turned into a bedroom, and it was to be used by Mrs. Bembridge's grandfather for a while, and then in the end, during the last years of her life, because she was almost 90 when she died, was not able to really get upstairs very well, so this was her bedroom as well. Now we're using it as an office, and we probably continue to do it that way.
There's a downstairs bathroom there. That's
There
what,
is, if
four
you-
bathrooms in the house?
There are 4 bathrooms in the house. If you'd like to look at the original pull chain toilet, you may. We're using a storage area here. We have a lot of things in this bathroom, but the original pull chain toilet is quite nice because it's not working now, but you can see what it looked like back in the 1906 when they had this back bathroom.
4 baths in a house was quite progressive, wasn't it?
This was a very magnificent house. This is one of the, actually, we've been told it was probably the most magnificent house in this area in Long Beach when it was built. And we're very happy that Mrs. Bembridge was so adamant about having it destroyed, because they were going to tear this house down when they enlarged the park next door. The Drake Park was right next door to us, but Mrs. Bembridge was not going to allow that to happen.
Shall we go on upstairs?
Yes. We have 2 ways to go upstairs. If you can see the back staircase here, we're not going to take that. We're going to go up the more beautiful staircase. This was probably when the Greens had the house. They had, very likely they had a servant, Mr. and Mrs. Green, and they had 4 bedrooms upstairs. Very likely they had a servant. We don't know the details, but the staircase comes back down here directly to the kitchen, which used to be the kitchen here. So we feel that this was a servant in the house, and this would have been the way to get to the kitchen.
How many rooms do you have here?
Altogether, the house has 18 rooms.
And this is another bath?
Another bathroom. Let me turn the light on. This is probably the bathroom Mrs. Bembridge used in the last years of her life, because it is, well, it's working, functioning now, and it still works, and we use it. It's very old, as you can see from the fixtures. Hasn't changed at all in 100 years.
Large, high ceilings, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They're
Except in the bathroom.
Yeah, well, this bathroom is actually built under the staircase.
Right.
And there is something I need to talk about as we go up the front staircase, too, regarding the ceilings and the bathrooms, and I think that you would find it interesting. There are 2 landings. The first landing on the main staircase, this one, as I've spoken to you about, has the stained glass windows and the ionic columns next to this mirror. And then as we go up the stairs, we come to a second landing with a little sitting area, and I'll turn this light on so that you can see. This is something new that we've had done.
Oh, the light didn't used to work.
No, we didn't used to have a light here. We had an electrician come and do a few things for us, and this is one of the things that he did, was to wire this light so that now we have a nice little sitting area that you could actually use with a light here, and a little settee. And I want you to turn around and look over here at this floor that is coming out, and you see that there isn't anything holding this room up. This cantilevered floor, and it's hard to imagine what room could be above this floor. You would think, well, it's probably a very light room, something that wouldn't take a lot of stress, and you wouldn't worry about it. But when we go upstairs, you'll see that's not the case.
This is a beautiful staircase.
It is beautiful.
I wish we still had workmanship like this in this day and age.
Oh, yes, well, it's a lost art. Now, we'll go into the main bedroom, which is very large.
Oh, bright in here, too.
And since we've just been talking about it, I'd like you to turn your attention to the room that was cantilevered.
The bathroom.
Of all rooms, and that's why if you looked at the ceiling a little closely in the foyer, you saw that there was a little bit of leakage, because we had the bathroom above it, and there had been a little leakage, and it had gone through and caused some chipping of the paint. But obviously when the tub is filled, this is a very heavy room.
I can't imagine the weight with that tub full of water and a body.
And yet it has held up for 100 years, and you'd think it would not hold, but in the attic there are some angled beams and iron bars that are holding this room up, and they've held it for 100 years.
And this little room?
Another little room off of the main bedroom is the sewing room. We have a sewing machine that we think belonged to Mrs. Bembridge's grandmother. She did quite a bit of beautiful sewing. We have some examples of her work around the house. The bedspread is probably hers,
Now,
which we'll look at a little bit.
the sleeping porch was enclosed at the same time they built the kitchen?
Yes, it was. The sleeping porch, I think probably we've talked to some people about maybe opening again and have been discouraged, because I believe probably what happens, we get some pretty heavy winds here sometime, and I would imagine that it probably became not very comfortable for them to have it open as they did. So we've left it, and we will leave it closed.
And this is Mrs.
This is
Rankin's
the main-
handiwork?
We think, well, not Mrs. Rankin, Mrs. Taylor, Mrs. Bembridge's grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we think. I mean, we really don't know, but we think that it is. We think it's very lovely. It's the typical 1920s style. We have a mannequin here with a dress on because we're planning on having a Christmas celebration early in December, and our period is going to be the 1940s. So we have our mannequin dressed in a beautiful gown from the 1940s period, and we'll have that shown at that time.
When is your Christmas program going
It'll
to
be December the 1st.
Second.
Second, so I'm sorry, second, December the 2nd, Sunday, yes.
Cost?
I think they were going to charge, I'm not sure, I believe it's $20.
They can always call to find out
Yes,
more
call Long Beach
information.
Heritage, absolutely, yes.
And this is another bedroom?
Yes, it is, and we have another sliding door, and this one again works. You can pull it aside and show it. It was very common at the time this house was built to have two bedrooms next to one another. One of them might have been Mrs. Green's room, and the other one was Mr. Green's room. But probably when we think, and certainly we're showing it this way, that this would have been Mrs. Bembridge's room when she was a little girl. And we have some of the things that she saved, which we have a lot of children come through and have tours through here, and the children are entranced by this little dollhouse that we have, and the set of dishes that was given to Mrs. Bembridge when she was 10 years old by an aunt. She has an inscription on the bottom of the box that this was a present to her when she was 10.
So I notice there's a sink in here. Is that
Oh,
a very
yes.
Victorian
Well,
idea?
well, we have the master bedroom has a master bath, but the two other bedrooms in this beyond, with the other one behind here and this one, both have sinks, so they can they can wash up. This one has a mirror over it and a light, which the back bedroom does not have. And this is a place where you can get cleaned up, but then if you needed to use the rest of the bathroom, take a bath, use the bathroom, then you could go down the hall because we have another bathroom on this floor. We have two on the first floor, two on the second floor.
Let's keep going. Now the wood is different up here than it is down below.
Oh,
It's
thank
much
you.
lighter.
Well, thank you for helping me to remember that, Harvey, because I was going to mention that to you. The interesting thing about the wood in this house is that it is the same wood downstairs as it is upstairs, but the stain is different. And another thing, normally when you would have people go up to the second floor, you wouldn't have the details. But look, you still see the details. You see the egg and dart around the top of the doorways, and you have the same kind of beautiful detailing upstairs as you had downstairs.
But it's not as exquisite up here
No,
as
it's
it is
not
downstairs.
as much as downstairs, but you still have it. Another thing that is very, I believe you were looking at it already.
The transoms?
The transoms over each of the doors. We have it all, each of the bedroom doors has the transom that allows air circulation, so you could open the windows and have air circulation. It wouldn't be too warm. We don't have air conditioning in this house. We do have heat.
We've only got 5 minutes, so I want to hurry through because
All
I
right.
want to go out and see the carriage house too. Now-
Well, the back bedroom is the bedroom that we call Neil's bedroom. It has many of Neil's things in here. It has the iron bed that he originally had, and two of our members were responsible for redoing this quilt. This quilt had been in shreds, and I was thinking of throwing it away, which was a horrible idea. One of my members looked at this, and she put it together, reconstructed the quilt, and now we have it sitting on the bed, so we're very pleased with it. We have Neil's accordion. He played the accordion and was quite accomplished. And
With the UCLA marching band?
yes, he also went to USC. He went to both colleges, USC and UCLA, and that's why we have his UCLA drum major hat.
And this is another one of the bathrooms up
Yes,
there?
the last of the 4 bathrooms upstairs here. Oops, there we go. And this last room up here is the room that was used by Mrs. Bembridge's father, Mr. Rankin, as an office. And we have his old typewriter and adding machine, which still has the glass leaded,
Beveled?
beveled, thank you, beveled glass inside here, and the the machines that he had. And we have one piece of clothing here that was not Mr. Rankin's. It says Charlie Bembridge on it. It belonged to Mrs. Bembridge's husband, Charles Bembridge. And it was because...
Someone must have been in the Masons.
Yes, he was in the Masons, and the
Fez?
the Fez that we have, the one that is the more recent Fez, which I should show you, is El Bacal. This was the Fez that they had when they were in the Los Angeles group. But the Long Beach people had their own, and it was L for long, L, B for beach, Cal, Long Beach, California.
Ha!
Yes.
Creative little devils, weren't they?
Yes, they still have it. The El Bacal is still here in Long Beach, yes.
Well, let's run down and check out the carriage house.
Very good.
Now, this little garden here, this is something new?
Yes, we're very, very pleased. It was offered to us this last summer from Leadership Long Beach. It was one of their projects that they wanted to do something beautiful for the community, so they put this a garden that will not need too much water.
Maintenance-free,
Maintenance-free garden. It has
drought-resistant.
It has needed some water to get it started, but it should really go without much water after it's established. And this garden has been something that we're really beautiful. We're very happy to have it.
I have to mention also the driveway.
Yes.
What an improvement.
Oh, this was very unsafe. We've had people tripping walking along the driveway. There were major holes in it. And now we have this lovely smooth driveway that leads up to our reconstructed carriage house, which is ramrod straight, you might notice. It was leaning badly before.
Let's point out the aviary here as we go.
Yes, that was recently redone, and the person who was responsible for doing that work was one of our neighbors, Richard Fair.
He's done so much work here.
He's always been very much appreciated by Mrs. Bembridge. He helped her a lot when she was alive.
When I was involved here, I used to call Richard all the time,
Yes.
and he was always Johnny on the spot.
Yes, he always has been. Yes.
And the carriage house does look so much better.
We're so pleased with the work that was done. The fact that it's straight now, and the fact that we now have back the original carriage house door. And that door is the original door that was on the back. There was one on the back and one on the front, because when you put a horse through the carriage, you couldn't get him turned around inside, so you'd have to have him go in one side and go out the other side. The back side now is a reconstruction of this door. This door was actually taken down when cars started to be used, and it was used as a garage, but no longer. We now have it as a carriage house, back the way it was.
You're going to build in a...
Yes, if you look over there, sort of an ugly spot there now, we have plans to have a new building put in there. It will be a bathroom and a storage room, and it will be accessible for people that are disabled.
Now, we only have a short time. Give me hours of operations if somebody wants to see the house. Is it accessible?
We have established the hours every Tuesday afternoon. We are here, and we'll open it up for anybody who comes by. But also we have, I think it's the third Saturday every month. They need to call and make reservations to make sure that we have staff here that will handle it. But that is our 2 times that we have it open, and it'll be all day Saturday.
And then you have special events every now and then.
Yes, we do. A couple of times a year, 2 or 3 times a year.
Is this, could somebody rent the house if they wanted for a function?
We haven't established anything like that at this time.
Iris, thank you. You did an outstanding job, as always.
Thank you,
And I just am so amazed at the amount of work that you guys have done since I was here in 2000.
Yes, we are too. We're very thrilled with it.
Dorothy must be happy as a lark up in heaven.
Well, we feel that she would be. I think she loved children, and I think she would really love the children's shows that we put on here, and we have them. And when school gets going, we're going to have quite a few children's programs coming through here, and that'll be wonderful.
Okay, once again, thank you.
Thank you, Harvey.
And that's our show for this time. Be sure and join us next time as we take another walk through history and uncover more Long Beach treasures. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Long Beach Treasures. I'm your host, Harvey Keller. Today we're up here in Bixby Knolls, and we're going to be taking a tour of the Historical Society's new headquarters. So if you'll come with me, we'll go on in and we'll get started. And joining me now is the president of the Historical Society, a very familiar face, Evan Browdy.
Hi, Harvey. How are you?
Thanks for joining me.
We're delighted to be here.
Tell us about your building.
Well, this building is a dream sort of come true. It's been a number of years in coming. We worked with the city, we worked with individuals, and Councilwoman Maria Gavlich helped find the building for us, and we managed to put it together so that we now have a building that some of us never expected to happen. It's a large, as you will see in your tour, you'll see it has some great space for our exhibits, and it'll be a wonderful future home. I mean, it's a home now, but it'll be wonderful future exhibits that will come to us.
And finally, a permanent home.
And finally, a permanent home. That's a great thing. You know, I have to tell you that, you know, it's obviously we're very happy that the city was able to work with us and to get this building together. But, you know, it's not just the city, it's not just the councilwoman, but it's the volunteers, it's the people who give money and who support the cause of bringing history alive in Long Beach. And, you know, just for instance, and you will see in a little while when you take a look at the sign, our new signage outside, there were two fabulous people who had just came to an event about a year ago, Carl Evans and Wanda Sims, and they really wanted to make a statement about how important the history of Long Beach is to them. And so they donated the sign, and that's an expensive sign. But the reality is that it helps, it's very unique sign, and it stands out, and people will be able to say, that's, you know, that's where our Historical Society of Long Beach resides.
What about membership?
Membership, we continue to grow. The membership is very important to us because, you know, obviously the larger the membership, the more we can expand our programming and get out there to make sure that everybody understands the importance of the history of Long Beach. We hope to have a number of exhibits that they'll have a chance to see. I think we're going to start off with North Long Beach, some of the specialty of this area where we're residing in from now on.
Very appropriate.
Yes, it is. It is very appropriate. I will also mention that starting in December, we will be open on Fridays from 9 to 5 for the public to come in and do research, to observe, to enjoy our history. And after the new year, we'll start opening a greater amount of hours.
You're expanding your hours of operation, aren't you?
Yes, we are. There's going to be, I can't tell you exactly all the hours yet because we're trying to work out the specific schedule, but we'll be open most every day.
Well, when you were down at the Security National Bank building, why, it was sort of inconvenient for people to come to do research and for people just to drop in.
Yes, it was. And unfortunately, we had hoped to be in our new building a couple of years ago. And it wasn't going to, this one, it was going to be a building that was being built downtown. That didn't work out the way we had hoped, but this turns out to be a very good solution to our long-term home.
It's quite a large facility, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And as you will see, we have two major galleries on this level. We have an upstairs where we have some offices. We have some additional storage facilities on this floor as well. And then we have this very large basement that you might say is hermetically sealed, and it has something to do with the history of this building. This used to be a furrier many years ago, and I think, as I understand it, of course, the furs had to be protected from potential theft, and so they were kept in a vault downstairs, which you'll, again, will see. And the fact is that I think other people who had furs used to keep them here, and so they had to be, again, protected. So that's why they were kept under lock and key, and it was in a controlled, climate-controlled room, and that is perfect for the kinds of things that we have to maintain a special climate for.
So it sounds like everything's coming together.
Oh, yes, it is, and it's people like yourself and other volunteers and people who are active on the board, and we have an extremely active board. We just recently had a cemetery tour, which was our 12th annual cemetery tour. We had hundreds and hundreds of people come to attend it, but what was really nice was to see all the volunteers, the people who put it together, who worked without pay because of their love of this organization, and they came and spent the time and energy, and they were a little tired after it was all done, but we really enjoyed it. And thanks to you playing Mr. Wilmore, the history of our city comes to life even more.
I know the script by now.
I suspect you do.
All right, I think we're going to call Julie in and have her take us on a tour, and stick around. We might have some more questions for you.
Absolutely, I'd be delighted to be here.
All right. Julie, let me introduce Julie Bartolotto. She's the executive director here at the Historical Society. This is her new home away from home, and she's going to take us on a tour and show us the facility.
Great. Thanks for coming.
Well, it's a pleasure.
We're standing in what we call the North Gallery, and it's the larger of the two galleries. We have two galleries that total 2,400 square feet of exhibition space. And in here in March, we're pleased to announce that we'll be hosting a Smithsonian exhibition entitled The Way We Worked. So let's now go into the South Gallery.
All right. The walls are so nice and white. What a great place to have an exhibit.
Yes, yeah. And there's great lighting that's been added in this room. This is the South Gallery.
Is that a movable wall?
Yes, there are two movable walls there, and that really makes the space much more flexible. So we can do different exhibitions and make research center when needed, and
so you could actually
variety of
have two
things.
exhibits going on at the same time.
Definitely.
One in each gallery.
Yes.
Do you have any other exhibits planned?
We are working on an architecture exhibition for summer '08.
Long Beach Architects?
Long Beach architects, architects such as Joseph Roberts, Palmer
Schilling and
Power. Not Schilling and Schilling. We're going to focus on 4 architects that we have collections for. So Palmer Power, Jess Jones, Richard Poper, who's just closing his office. He and Phyllis, his wife, are the donors of some of this material. But Joseph Roberts, we've received several contributions over the years from a variety of different sources about his work in Long Beach.
So where are we going now?
So now we'll go to the archive, where we store the historical materials.
And that is which way?
That is this way.
Oh, okay. I'll follow you. This is really a huge facility.
It's 7,000 square feet. This is the archive where most of the historical materials are stored. These boxes along this wall are mostly contain documents. They also contain artifacts, scrapbooks, ledgers, many different things, maps, map books.
Is the whole building hermetically controlled?
This
If that's the correct term.
this is a temperature and humidity controlled room, as is the vault and
Now,
the gallery.
If someone comes to do research, is this the research room?
No, this is not the research room. Researchers will be at a research table in the gallery, and staff or volunteers who are helping that researcher will come back here to retrieve materials.
That must have been quite a job moving all of this from
It sure
one
was.
place to another.
It sure was. And one of the amazing things is that almost all of what you'll see here today was on the 12th floor at the security building in a suite of offices. So
Wow.
that was also amazing. Behind you, Harvey, are filing cabinets full of full of photographs and negatives from Long Beach's past. Most of our photographs came from the work of
Did I read
commercial.
out front you have over 30,000 photographs?
We do. Most of our collection came from Lawrence Inman and the Winstead brothers, who were commercial photographers who worked mostly 20s through the 40s. We also have a great collection of really early images from Charles Doherty. Those are mostly on glass plate negatives. Charles Doherty is the father of Earl Doherty.
Oh, the aviator?
The aviator.
Let's go on and see what else you got in store for us.
Okay. We're going to walk through a room of offices and down to the vault.
And this is fireproof?
This is a concrete vault. This was where they stored the furs in 1950 when the building was built. And from our research, we know the fur store was here at least through 69, and we're not sure how much later than that. So if you come in here and down the stairs.
All right, I'll just follow you on down. You're going to lose weight going up and down the stairs all the time. Oh, wow, this is bigger and bigger.
Yes, it is.
Now, is this where you store your important documents and stuff?
Well, this is where we store other materials. What we did is we prioritized that what we use the most, we would keep on the ground floor, and the large items that would be difficult for us to manage on the stairs are on the ground floor.
No, this is fireproof.
This is concrete, yes. Yes.
And it's comfortable down here. It's not warm, it's not cold, it's just comfortable.
Yeah. It's a good, really good situation for storing historical materials. And in here you can see things like our collection of city manager files. So these were the files of Wyndham while he was city manager, 1922 to 1926. And here we have a file that's entitled Appointments, and a variety of documents related to appointments.
So you can go back and check who was in what position on what date and appointed by whom.
Yes, possibly. Here's some early city letterhead, 1925 letter from a chief engineer. So this is an outstanding collection that we have.
That's basically a fairly new collection that you got, is it not?
Yes, it's something that we received in 99, which isn't so new anymore.
Oh, was it that long ago?
And you can see these are the original boxes. We received 75 boxes like this full of documents from the city manager files. And they were all of the documents that we were just looking at used to be in boxes like this and in file folders like this that are falling apart. And so we have interns and volunteers who are working on cataloging them and transferring them from the old boxes into new archival boxes for long-term preservation.
And I believe you have a second story here also?
We do. We have an upstairs as well.
Before we go, where did you get the model of the Pacific Coast Club?
We got the model from basically the city of Long Beach when Ferdinand Martel, who built a variety of these models, passed away. The city ended up storing them in the breakers in a storeroom on the level where our location used to be. And the city chose some that they wanted to hold on to. Some were given to Bernard Rosenson, the owner of the Breakers building, and then some of the models were given to us. And the model that we're looking at right now is one of the Pacific Coast Club.
Do you know whatever happened to the model city that he built that used to be in the...
It was in the Breakers the last time that I saw it.
Because that would be, that's truly a treasure. Mm-hmm. All right, where are we going now?
We'll go to the offices on the third floor, or on the second floor.
Now, what's up here, Julie?
Up here is a small kitchen, which is great for programs, and a space that will become a meeting space and work area and lunchroom. So right now we have the leftovers of our cemetery tour up here that you can see. And then also up here is a restroom and my office, which we can look at. It has lovely skylights
This will be a nice place to do prep for,
programs.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
and this is the main office here, huh?
Yes, and it's a great space where we can have small meetings and larger meetings out in the kitchen or even larger meetings in the gallery. So.
A little more spacious in your office in the Security Bank building.
It's a lot different than 5 cubes in one room this size.
As we came by, I noticed the bathroom. It looks like it's big enough that you could have a small dance in there.
It's a very large restroom, yes.
Okay.
It was as is. We did virtually no work to the upstairs.
And you were going to go show us something else. What was it?
Yes, I think we should go look at the freezer where we store our nitrate negatives because I think that's one of the more interesting things about what we have.
We're on our way. Let's
Great.
go. Okay, what are we going to see again?
We're going to see our collection of nitrate negatives, which were negatives made before the 1930s. And these negatives are backed on nitrate film, which is somewhat unstable. And we invested, with the help of the Boeing Employees Community Fund, in this freezer probably about 10 years ago, and this freezer system. So in each one of these boxes is a desiccant, which controls the humidity within the box. And then there are negatives that are usually 8 by 10 size negatives, so like a whole sheet of paper, a single negative. And they have they create these amazing images because there's so much detail in the negatives.
Now they're frozen?
And so this is to keep their temperature down, and then within the box, it controls the humidity. So if we find that we need a negative out of one of these boxes, we take it out and we let it climatize to room temperature, and then the next day we can open the box and look at the negatives.
Wow. And there looks like there's quite a few in there.
There are, and there are actually more than we have freezer space for, so eventually we need another freezer to continue the preservation of our nitrate negative collection.
So if there are any appliance dealers out there watching us and they want to make a contribution to the Historical Society, a freezer would work well?
A freezer would be excellent, thank you. And we won't put any ice cream in it.
Okay. Julie, tell me about some of the programs you're going to have coming up, or what you do.
Well, we just finished our biggest program of the year, the cemetery tour. We're in preparations, obviously, to do a small exhibition on North Long Beach for our opening and set up our research center. So since we have such a small staff and limited resources, we can only do certain things only so many things at a time, but we are also planning for the Smithsonian exhibition.
Which will be a major exhibition.
A major exhibition that will take the entire 2 galleries. That's a partnership with the Arts Council for Long Beach. We're really pleased to be partnering with them on this, and it will actually open Smithsonian Week, which is one of the Arts Council's major projects, so we're excited to be involved with that. In addition, we are doing programming related to work in Long Beach, and we have a project called Long Beach Works, and we will be working with students and club members from the local Boys and Girls Club who will interview people about their work experiences in Long Beach, and we'll try to get very typical Long Beach stories, maybe oil workers.
Will that be something like Tell Me Your Story?
Yes, it's a variation of Tell Me Your Story, yes. So the students will interview people, get these stories, work with historians and actors, and produce short little performances that tell about this, that portray the story. And then we'll host those here in the gallery, maybe on some First Fridays and maybe at some of the street fair events that happen here in Bixby Knolls. So that's our big program coming up, and we're fortunate to have funding from Los Angeles County Supervisor Don Knabe for that project, and the California Council for the Humanities, and additionally a small grant from the Arts Council for Long Beach.
Well, Julie, I'm glad you finally have a permanent home.
Thank you.
It's large, and I think people are going to be quite impressed when they see some of the exhibits that you'll be putting on in the next few months.
Yes, and we actually need to say we because we're fortunate to have Harvey, you as a board member for quite a few years, and so it doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Always a pleasure. Julie, thank you.
Thank you, Harvey.
Evan, thank you for
You're welcome.
Mr. President.
Well, no, I'm delighted you could come and see the start of something that's going to be a great history here in the Historical Society of Long Beach's new headquarters.
I think people are going to be impressed when they see the size of the facility.
Yes, but you know, it will start to shrink as we get more and more documents and we bring in some more of our, we still have some things that are still stored we haven't had a chance to bring over yet.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work, and thanks for letting me stop by.
Thanks for coming.
And don't go away, we'll be right back with more Long Beach Treasures.
Hello everyone! Well, it's been a while since my last post. There we go. I got a new job and my new boss had me pick up some DVDs. He had them duplicated at some place called Avid in Long Beach. Oh, and Octavio, the guy at Avid that gave me the DVDs, is really cute.
Come to Avid in Long Beach for all your video editing and rental needs. And say hi to Octavio.
Founded in 1976, Polly's Gourmet Coffee is Southern California's most complete gourmet coffee store. Polly's has the best tasting coffee, freshly roasted every day right in the store, plus a wide selection of teas, an in-house bakery, espresso bar, patio dining, and more. We also offer Wi-Fi, free internet access for all of our customers. Our nationwide clientele agree, when it comes to coffee, there's only one name to remember, Polly's, 4606 East 2nd Street, welcoming you into Belmont Shore.
Everybody knows My Mailboxes, etc. is the best place to pack and ship. But Brown said, let's take it to the next level. We're becoming the UPS store with new low rates direct from UPS and the same great people to help with packing, copying, and mailbox services. New sign, new shirt. The shorts will be here soon.
New low rates, same great service. Call 1-800-PICK-UPS.
Food's great. I can see 11 TVs from where I'm sitting. Great atmosphere, good service. Excellent place to come watch a game.
Lots of good sports, great television.
Football, baseball, and HD down at Smooth Sports Grill.
There's actually a nightclub Friday nights and Saturday nights. Fantastic DJ. We love coming to Smooth.
Great food. Got televisions everywhere. Nice place.
All right, here we are in one of the Historical Society's neighbors. It's called Chroma Glass Designs. And this is Krista. I guess you own the place? Well, Krista, thanks for letting me stop by. I have a few questions for you.
All right.
I think you were one of the movers and shakers of First Fridays up here in Bixby Knolls?
Yes.
What is First Fridays?
First Fridays is a monthly art event that takes place inside local businesses in the Bixby Knolls area, and the focus is to give the local artists a place to show their work, bring people to businesses in Bixby Knolls, and give the community something to do on a Friday night. And we typically, the businesses will keep later hours, staying open till roughly around 10 o'clock, most of them.
Well, that was my question. When you said for artists to display their work, my question was going to be, what about the other businesses? Do they participate also?
Yes, the businesses that aren't necessarily showing any artist work, a few of them are keeping later hours also. So it is a lot of lights on, a lot of people moving up and down the street, and you know.
And how far does this, up in Bixby Knolls, how many blocks?
The bulk of it is between Bixby and Burling Hall, and then we're picking up a few more businesses south of Bixby. And primarily it's businesses get involved when they kind of figure out how they can fit First Fridays into their business, and how, and you know, what makes it work in their structure.
It seems like there's a lot of more activity up here in Bixby Knolls, that you're expanding, that you're becoming a closer knit community, more businesses are moving in. Why is this?
I think, you know, there's been a huge shift in, you know, people moving into the area and, you know, a renewed interest in the area. And, you know, I live in Cal Heights, and, you know, when I decided to open a business, I wanted it to be in the area in which I live. So I wanted to, you know, hopefully create a strip of my section of town that has something that I can walk to and places to go and things to do that I don't have to get in the car to do.
You're in a great spot because you're here, and the theater is next door,
Yeah.
and then the Historical Society, and you have the Four Olives down a couple more doors. Great businesses.
Yeah, you know, we're slowly seeing, you know, a little more activity on the street.
And your business here is making stained glass.
We are the only stained glass studio and retail store in the city of Long Beach. We primarily do commission pieces as well as repairs. So anyone that has a broken stained glass window, this is generally where they end up. And we also sell supplies and teach classes for people.
Is this hard
wanting
to
learn.
do?
It's not hard as much as it's a little
A lot of patience.
patience and discipline in really trying to get it figured out.
I love stained glass. I think it's so beautiful. You do commissions?
Yes, this is a commission piece for a home with a very specific architecture, a Victorian home, and so we wanted to have a window that goes into the home that fits the time period of the home.
Do you also make your own designs?
I do. Often a client will come in and they won't have any idea as to what they want, and just by talking to them, I'll get a feel for what their likes and dislikes are and what, you know, the architecture of the house is, and then I'll draw around. I'll draw a design that fits around all of that.
By the way, going back to Bixby Knolls, are there any other programs that the Bixby Knolls Business Association puts on up here? Don't you have a snow day?
There's snow in Bixby. It's the first Sunday in December, so it'll be December 2nd this year. And we also have the dragster show and car show in July every year.
Krista, I want to thank you for letting me stop by and get some information about Bixby Knolls and your First Fridays, and I love your work here.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And that's our show for this time. And this ends our 8th year of doing Long Beach Treasures. So we thank you for your support. We thank you for watching. And we hope that you all have a very happy holiday season. So come back and join us next year for more Long Beach Treasures.